Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Helena Sly. She is an online coach and a wonderful human being. We have not met. We've literally just been chatting for like the past 5 minutes before recording. And I swear today's episode is going to be a good one. So wherever you are listening to this, make sure that you are fully concentrated because it's one of the episodes you do not want to miss out. So welcome, babe.
Thank you. What an introduction. I'm excited to get into today's chat. Thank you.
Me too. So for our listeners who don't know who you are, please tell us what it is that you're doing right now within your coaching space and what got you into the health and fitness industry.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an online coach at the moment. I am currently a women's only coach, but I'm actually just about to sort of rebrand a little bit and open back up to a male and female audience. And that, I suppose, mainly is because with my training style recently, I've changed some of my goals and I'm training more for muscle hypertrophy myself. And a lot more men are asking me questions. And a lot of men have actually been asked to be coached by me. And so the fact that they're quite naturally already gearing towards me, I think it'd be silly not to. And it's always fun to do a little bit of a rebrand. But I suppose my journey and how I got into fitness, I actually started my qualification to become a PT when I first graduated high school. That was the first thing I did when I left. I went and did my Cert 3, Cert 4. And just before I finished my Cert 4, actually, I dropped out because I was about to have a major back surgery. And I thought I would never be able to work in the industry because I didn't think I'd be able to be very active. And I sort of lived life for the next 10 years. And it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to go back to it. And I was a competitive martial artist. And I wanted to try and find a PT for myself to help me with my karate training. And there really wasn't anyone in that niche. And I decided to revisit my own training. And I started training to become a coach, but also to become a coach for karateka. And that's where I wanted to start off. And along the way, while I was doing all my training in the gym and things like that, mostly for my karate training, I kept on having people asking me, like, do you compete? Or when are you competing? And I was like, oh, like I might have a tournament in Japan next year, I think in like August or, you know, whatever was coming up in the karate world. They're like, oh, so you're not like a fitness competitor? It's like, no, that's weird. But I had multiple people in multiple different gyms because I was on one of those fitness passports ask me about competing. And I thought, well, you know, if enough people think that this is what I'm doing, then maybe I should do that. And I asked my coach at the time to take me through to a show because I also realized that no matter what you're coaching, there's going to be people coming to you for body composition results and particularly fat loss. I'd never had to lose a lot of fat before. I'd, you know, put on 5 kilos here, 7 kilos there, back down, but just kind of by cleaning things up a little bit. But I'd never had to do a hard diet for an extended period of time. And I thought, you know, the hardest diet you can do is one to get on the bodybuilding stage. And that's going to give me a lot of relatable tools for anyone who comes to me for fat loss. Like I will have like stuck through the depths of long, hard dieting and be able to relate to them more and have more tools available. So I thought in that sense, it also made sense. And I guess as things have gone on, I've moved away from the karate world and the physique world is where I live and play. And I'm prepping for my 3rd show just now. And I have a couple of my own clients who I've prepped for stage 2. So now I'm a bodybuilding coach as well as sort of lifestyle and physique. And I do have some karateka on my team, but primarily sort of, lifestyle management more than anything else with why I coach.
I love that. What a variety to be able to go from, you know, back surgery to karate to bodybuilding to training men now as well. I think that's really freaking cool. But before we go into the training side of things, what was it like having the back surgery? What did you actually have the surgery on? And what did it look like for you in terms of rehab post that to get you back into training?
Yeah, sure. So back then I wasn't really doing much in the way of gym training. I was doing a little bit, but not a whole lot. My main sport at the time was karate and I was a dancer. I was really doing a lot, I guess, when I left school. But I had scoliosis, quite a severe scoliosis, an S curve, which I had a body brace on through most of high school to try and correct enough to not have to have the surgery, but I still ended up needing the surgery. So I had like I think a 48 and a 52-degree curve or something around there, around the 50-degree mark on both curves, and then a rotation in my thoracic spine as well. And so I was quite uncomfortable, and so I was in chronic pain, I guess is the more accurate description, for years. And so it was something that I kind of had the option to have that surgery then, or wait until I was not able to walk. So while I was 19 and I was still living at home with mum, that was the decision then to do it then. But it was a major operation. So I've got two 15-inch long rods on either side of my spine now. So I have permanently perfect posture. I cannot slouch. And it's I guess the positive side effect is I always look sprightly and confident, whether I am or not. But that's actually given me a really good insight into how people perceive you based on your posture, and I notice it a lot on other people. But I suppose it's another conversation in itself. But my recovery from that surgery was long. Like it was like essentially a year before I was able to move really well again. But I went back to karate training and dancing very, very lightly, like standing in the back line and work out how to stick my arms out straight, because my whole torso had moved, my center of gravity had moved, the angle that my limbs came out of my body was slightly different. Like it was just me in my space. And I guess proprioceptive awareness was so changed. And so that in itself took a long time, and just the recovery from such a big operation, so much moving. So it was little by little from about 3 months back to a year when I was moving, I guess, quite normally again, and I was back in a karate tournament and back on the dancing stage. So it was big and slow and hard. Like it was literally like those first few days you kind of got to learn how to walk on the walker again, and you got claps for taking 4 steps before you needed to sit down and have a rest. But it was probably, I guess, the most beneficial thing I ever did for my health and my happiness, because chronic pain was so awful for my mental health, and it stopped me from being able to do so many things I loved. And having that surgery really hasn't limited me. I can't slouch, and that's about the only limitation I have. And so for me, it's been a real successful surgery, and something that I know a lot of my followers follow me because they've found me via like a scoliosis hashtag or something. And it's nice to be able to give people hope that, you know, you can train, you can squat, you can deadlift with rods in your back. And if anything, if you've got back pain, the worst thing you can do is be sedentary. The stronger you are, the less pain you're in. So yeah, it's been really positive for me now. And that's been 13 years now, 12 years.
Wow. What a journey. I can totally relate to being in chronic pain, because I used to suffer from lower back pain from bulging a disc many, many years ago. And for those who have bulged discs before, or have had scoliosis or have scoliosis and are suffering this pain, you know how annoying it is. Like you wake up with pain, you go to bed with pain. It's just, you have this constant fog in your brain going, this is never going to end. Like this is how I'm going to live my life. But then something switches, you know, for yourself, Helena, you had the surgery. It's helpful. For some other people, it's seeing, you know, other professionals to help to do, whether it's the rehab or certain training programs to help. And like you said, you can progress better. It's just the decision that you need to make for yourself, because we all make the choices every day, whether you choose to actually go ahead and, you know, be a little bit uncomfortable, whether it's a few months or a year, like yourself, and then progress from there, or it's actually staying in pain forever and not doing anything about it.
Yeah, though it's like, I guess it's like anything really, when you're in a bit of a bad situation, if you just like sit in your shit, you're going to stay there, kind of stuff. And, you know, you can completely acknowledge that the situation is hard, no matter what that is. But the only way you can really respond is to either sit in it or find some steps around it to be able to keep stepping forward. But I can't sit in my shit for too long. It doesn't get you anywhere.
It fucking stinks.
And it stinks. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that analogy. Not many people talk about shit, and then when someone says that, I'm like, yeah, it reeks. We don't want to be sitting in it for too long. So I love that. So now obviously it's been, 12, 13 years since the surgery, and we're back into training, and as you mentioned before, you're more into the body composition. We're competing now. What does that look like for you right now in terms of training?
So I've actually just started a prep. So I'm 18 weeks out from stage. So right now my training is just up the ante a little bit. Normally year round I train like 4 days a week. I don't do any cardio. And now back in season again, I train 5 days a week lifting, and I've got sort of a couple little just 20-minute cardio sessions more than anything, just to keep circulation going and recovery. And I've got 2 like medium intensity cardio sessions a week. And that's just all going to continue increasing as we get closer and closer to stage. Essentially, the smaller you get, the harder it is to get things to move, and it just keeps on getting more intense until you get the end. But yeah, it's good. I actually love when it gets a bit busier and more hectic. Obviously, training like this 5 days a week year round plus cardio, for me, it's not really enjoyable to train that much all year round. I like to have quite a lot of flexibility, and I work a lot, and I like to have some downtime, and essentially for my goals to grow muscle and to live a lifestyle that I enjoy, and to look, to look like my lifestyle represents in my physique. 5 days is not necessarily necessary, but getting into stage condition is up. But I actually love when my schedule's a little bit too full for a period of time. You kind of run on like a little bit of just enough anxiety, just enough pressure that you're performing, and you're kind of surprising yourself all the time about how much you can get done. It is definitely nice to come back down off that, but I love when the ante ups a bit, and I put myself under that little bit of pressure. I think that's where you find yourself surprising yourself, which is pretty cool.
It's the competitor in you. I find whoever has done a competition, not necessarily bodybuilding, but anything competitive as an athlete, or going to a meet, or like as powerlifters, you have this sort of like switch, and you're like, okay, it's game time. Like, let's focus, let's go. Pardon me. And I love the fact that you also mentioned that you don't do it all year round. It's not sustainable. And that's why it's always really good in terms of whether it's looking at competing for bodybuilding or certain other meets as an athlete. It's only a certain period of time that you actually do that type of training, and then for the rest of the year, as people know, it's more of that off season of maintaining that.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with my karate, it was the same sort of thing. Like leading up to tournaments with that, like my training would increase to sort of unsustainable levels. And I, particularly while I was my very first show, I was still doing karate at the same time as I was prepping. So I used to get up at 4:30. I'd get to the gym at 5 and do some karate bag work at the gym, and then go do my work day. At the end of my work day, head to karate for my actual classes at night. And then on the days that I wasn't doing that, I was doing gym for like learning how to PT. And then as time went on, I switched over to obviously, the more gym and less karate. But there was times where I was training morning and night, for the 5 days a week, and then 1 or 2 sessions on the weekend, because I had goals in multiple areas, and it was intense. But while I was doing it, like, I ran like clockwork, and there was just nothing could get in my way. Every session was happening. We were in flow. And that's what I think sometimes when you're a bit busier, everything, you have to be efficient so you do a better job. Whereas if you have, however much time you have to do things, you take to do it. So if you've only got 4 sessions in the week, and that you've got other days to do them, you leave them till tomorrow, and sometimes they just don't get done. Whereas, when it was like, you cannot afford to miss a session, because that means doubling up again on that day, or this one's going to get missed, that pressure just makes you just go. And I think it actually can be good for building the habit of going sometimes, to have a little bit too much in the schedule. And I know that, I guess there's a couple of different schools of thought on that, which is, you can either like start off your way real easy and then work your way in. But I think sometimes it's good to take advantage of motivation at the beginning, where you want to do more, and then realize that you can do a little bit less. But after you've already built the habit, it's easier to do less and continue to go. And so, it very much depends on personality type and what we're working around. But that's actually just something I notice a lot of in people as well. Sometimes having a bit too much in the schedule is the easier way to make sure it gets done.
Yeah. I find it's interesting that you said that, because now that I'm reflecting on my schedules, when life gets just way too crazy, I notice that I literally will have to schedule everything in, because if I don't, it won't get done. But then on the quieter weeks, it's just like, I'm a little bit more flexible. Instead of training in the morning, I'll just push it down to the afternoon a little bit. But I'm noticing how, like you said, if you have a full schedule, you have no excuse for not getting it done. You're just finding those little gaps to, you know, go to the gym to train, or whether it's your recovery system, whatever it is, just to keep yourself disciplined on track for that.
Yeah, 100%. When I'm busy, everything is in my calendar. That thing is color coordinated from like when I get up to when I go to bed, like everything is in it. And, you know, to anybody who's not living that way, it looks pretty hectic and stressful, but that I get to be so calm when I see that because I know everything fits. Whereas if I'm just sort of, you know, letting my day run itself, I can be super busy, but I've forgotten things that were really important at certain times. And I got ADHD, so I need their routine. If it's out of sight, it's out of mind, man. I lose stuff all the time. You know, I'll forget. I tell my clients, like, you stay in contact with me because I will forget you exist if I haven't heard from you. Like, make sure you message me or like check in at the end of your session. So yeah, for me, it's got to be in the schedule. Otherwise, it just actually causes me so much more stress to try and rely on my working memory to hold on to it all. If it's out of brain dumped into the schedule, I don't have to think about it. I just follow the list.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll have to schedule my eating times as well, because otherwise I forget about that.
100%. Yeah, I set alarms. I got cheerleader alarms, I call them, all through my day that are like, you know, get up and have a break, get up and move, like back to desk now, like all through like I've got my morning routine set to a couple of different alarms. You know, wake up, time to grind, or wake up, time to shine, whatever vibe I'm going with at the time. I relabel them every now and then with different emojis. You know, hair and makeup done, is like, you should be in the kitchen now. I'm like, okay, I'm on the way to the kitchen now. And these alarms, like, to other people, they, once again, they may be so stressful, but then I just know that I'm going to run on because I lose track of time. You know, I'll just spend longer on my makeup, or, you know, fluffing about doing something else and realize that 2 hours have disappeared and I don't know what I've been doing. Whereas the alarm goes off, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll just finish this off quickly and I'll go do that. And my day just flows nicer. So for me, I love my routine, and it's nice to take breaks from it, but I always start to miss it after a few days. It gets to the point where I'm like, I've just had enough of a routine, and then I'll go away on a holiday or whatever and be really excited to not have a routine. And then after a little bit, I'm like, oh, I'm getting stressed because I'm still losing time in my day. I don't know where things are. And I start to crave my routine again. It's my comfort place. And I think that's when you know you've got a good relationship with your routine. If your routine is draining you and you're constantly wanting a break from it, then it's really not set up well. And if you find that when you do take a break from it, you start to miss it, you know that you've got life set up pretty well for yourself. And it, you know, that does look different for everybody and different in different phases of life. But yeah, if you shouldn't be hating your routine, I think is a big part of what we talk about in coaching, because it can look so different from one person to the next. And if you're trying the wrong routine, you're trying to make, you know, square peg round hole sort of theory, it just does not work. And somebody else's routine does not necessarily work for you. It's good to try it because you work out what does work and doesn't. But yeah, if you're hating it every day, it's not the way. It should be enjoyable because it should be formulated for your brain and how you work.
100%. There was a time that I literally was draining my certain routine. This was prior to coaching, when I was working in sales, and I just noticed I was dreading life so much, whether I was going to work or going to the gym or doing certain other activities outside of work. And, you know, you just don't have that fire lit up. You're just like, oh yeah, I'm just, you know, taking it day by day. You're not really living in the moment and enjoying it. And I love the fact that you mentioned that, because maybe a lot of our listeners can relate to this, that sometimes it can feel a little bit draining when you're doing something that you don't want to be doing, but sometimes you kind of like have to do it as well. It's like that catch-22, you know, not all of us love doing taxes, but we need to fucking do it, you know, unless you can delegate it and give it to your accountant for them to do it. That will be freaking goals. But yeah, I can totally relate to that. And that's something that has been a really big focus for myself this year, is doing things that I actually enjoy doing and doing more of them. Because again, if you're not doing the stuff that you love doing, why are you doing it in the first place?
Absolutely. And I think that there's parts of that too. So like when it comes to some things, obviously, that we have to do that we don't enjoy doing, maybe there's a different way of doing the thing. It is still not necessarily going to be a thing that you like doing, but I think finding ways to make stuff you don't enjoy more enjoyable is so important. And I talk about this a lot with my clients, and you know, if you're changing your lifestyle to fit in more training and nutrition and prioritizing health, like that wraps up you're like getting your laundry done, that wraps up keeping your kitchen clean, that wraps up organizing and having your stuff folded in your drawers, because all that stuff, it ties together into making life just flow easier. Things just feel easier. I've got a big sort of I guess for me like a drive around removing the from my day. Like anything that makes you it's got to go. Like if that drawer doesn't shut properly every time, like take the time to fix it or spend the money to get that drawer fixed. Because if every single day you have a bit of like on the day that you're about to break, that could be the thing that breaks you. And when that drawer just shuts, like you haven't added to your like for the day. And like when you're doing your taxes, for example, that was okay. Just anyone who's starting off as a new coach, that was the first thing that I outsourced, was getting an accountant. And I found one that I could essentially, I've got like almost like a subscription, like I pay a monthly fee rather than a big lump fee at tax time to him. And that kind of wraps up, and all I have to pay or not pay is the actual tax. But that was something that gave me so much, was looking at that, and it gave me so much stress. It was very well worth the money to invest in somebody to do that for me, because then I'm not thinking about that while I'm trying to do other work on my business. That money would have come back time and time again when I was actually just focusing on growing my business rather than thinking about avoiding trying to do my taxes. And so yeah, when you're doing the shit that you don't like doing, I'm big on like finding just dumb ways to make it fun, or I set little challenges for myself. I'm in my routine. I'm so childish sometimes, but it just works. Like I set these little 15-minute timers to get me up and away from the desk every 1 or 2 hours or something, depending on what I'm doing. I'm like, 15 minutes. Okay, how much cleaning can I get done in 15 minutes? It's a little challenge. And everybody knows if someone's coming over, you can get so much done around your house in 15 minutes. But if you've got all day that today I'm going to clean up the house, you get bugger all done and you waste the whole day. But you can take that 15 minutes and like zoom around the kitchen and it looks immaculate at the end, or like 15 minutes to fold all the laundry or whatever. And, it's a lot more fun for myself. I'll put on a song or two, put on some cheesy playlist, and I know I've got 15 minutes to get it done, and then I can go back to work. And it's so much better than waiting until the end of my work day to then go and tidy the house or clean the kitchen or whatever. Like I do it within my work day. And if you're an online coach, obviously you've got that flexibility. Usually you're going to be working at home, so I get most of my housework done in those couple of little 15-minute buzzy breaks that and that I have fun doing it rather than spending my day off doing it. And I think your routine can really support you. Having less is massive.
I can totally relate to that. It's like when Sunday comes and it's like washing day or clean the house day, I don't end up doing it till like the last minute. I think it's just before dinner or just after dinner. And I'm like, what was that thing that I had to do again? I was like, oh yeah, my washing. And you're like, God, I should have done this like, a couple of days ago. So I love the fact that you're placing in these little 15-minute gaps. And I think more of us need to do that. I usually schedule my nap time. So not every day, but like on the days that I'm a little bit more flexible, I have, half an hour spare. Within that half an hour, I will spend 15, 20 minutes and literally just take a quick break, have a nap, just to like decompress, whether it's in between client check-ins or, programming, just taking time for your inner child, as you said, because if you're so serious all the time, you're literally just elevating the stress up and up and up till eventually you're just going to like burn out. Or like you said, you'll have like that feeling, which we don't want to overconsume ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the nap. That's cute. I've definitely had times where I've had that too, because I'm a super early riser. I just thrive really early in the morning before I can have too many distractions, and I get a lot of work done very early. But I do sometimes have to open up, obviously, some call times for after work hours, because most clients are working through the day and not everyone wants to jump on a 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m. call. And so, sometimes I've been up since 3:30, and if I'm going to be having a 6 p.m. Zoom, like I'm pretty brain dead by that point. So I definitely don't work through the whole day until that point, or, not anymore. In my first year of running the business, I think you kind of work 14-hour days to build things up, but that definitely wasn't sustainable for a long time. So now I work 6 or 8 hours a day, and I will have a big break in the middle. I find I thrive early in the morning, and then I really zone out maybe 10:30, 11, and I'll go train, or I'll clean, or I'll cook, or have any of my appointments or whatever scheduled for that sort of middle of the day time, and then do a bit more work again late in the afternoon and evening if I know I'm going to have calls then. And yeah, sometimes that will involve a little nap, because I'm like, I need to recharge before I put some energy into something. Because especially with coaching, like I put, you want to throw a lot of energy across that Zoom call, or I use Loom for a lot of my check-ins if the clients are not doing Zoom chats. And my Looms, my clients always love them, but it takes a lot of energy out of me. It might only be a 3 or 4 minute video, but I'll be like, hey Ziggy, thanks for your check-in. Okay, so I love the way that you've been, implementing such and such into your routine, and I know that they're on the other side of it with a big grin on their face and nodding along, and
like what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, right. And so I put a lot of energy into that. I think if someone were to send a Loom and they're going to be really flat in their voice, and whatever, if you're not actually having a connection back and forth, most especially if it's recorded, you got to throw a lot of energy across the camera, and it can definitely take a lot out of you. So yeah, I love the idea of having a nap. If that works for you, put it in, schedule in what's important.
Yes. Yeah. Naps are very important for me. I've realized over the last couple of years, if I don't have them in my weekly schedule, I find that I burn out a little bit too easy. And like you said, energy is such a big thing, because especially as coaches right now, post, the pandemic, well, we're still kind of in there somehow. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know where we're at right now. But a lot of us have transitioned to Zoom, the Loom calls, and people can read energy really fucking easily. Like, girls who are listening to us right now, you can sense our energy. Like, we're very high, we're very involved, we're like very in depth right now into what we're doing right now. But if I was talking like this, and I was be like, oh, hey guys, yeah. Another episode, you can tell like you're not engaged. You don't want to be engaged. So I love the fact that you mentioned that, because it is very energy consuming. And that also brings us back to, placing in a little bit more recovery into our routine as well. Because yes, work is important, but your well-being is also very important as well. So if you're showing up for everyone else, but not showing up for yourself, you're going to end up burning out really quickly. I don't know about you, but like that's happened to me a lot of times, where I was literally helping everyone, doing all the things, saying yes, yes, yes. And then eventually I just got so sick, and I was just like, something needs to change, because if it doesn't, I'm just going to get sick again.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the hardest things about when you're starting your own business, is there's so much, you don't have anything else to fall back on, right? And so you do just keep on saying yes, in case there's a little period of time where no one asks, and you take on too much. And I also think, and I don't know if it's, it's the thing you're meant to say, right? But I think it actually takes that to work out where your limit is. Like, I think you do have to kind of over push it a couple of times to really work out where it is. If you're always trying to avoid it without never getting there, you may also be holding yourself way back from what you can achieve and what you can really do well in. But over pushing the mark, not that I would actually ever want to encourage that in anyone, but it's almost one of those things. I could sit here and say, make sure you always have recovery, make sure you always, keep yourself, under the limit where you can not reach burnout. I also don't think if I had taken that approach, I wouldn't have ever reached the level that I have. And so I think, you do need to be very mindful and watch the signs for when it's happening, when it's there, and try and get back out of it very quickly, realize what you've said no to, what you said yes to that you should be saying no to, and adjust that quickly. But I think that actually anyone who's doing well probably has actually pushed past that point a few times. And if you haven't, that might be the thing that's the reason if you're not doing well. And I hate to say that, because I don't want to encourage anyone to get to that point, but it kind of takes that to know where your limit is. I think that's kind of, you spend your 20s pushing your limits a little bit too far, so that you can sort of settle in your 30s and know where that limit is. Yeah. I think that's in a lot of areas, to be honest.
100%. I totally agree with that, because I wouldn't be talking about this stuff right now if I didn't push myself. Like I said, I pushed myself way too quickly and I burnt out. I got sick. And yeah, like you said, sometimes you just have to do the thing that you're not really supposed to do, but you learn from it, and that way you grow better as well.
Yeah, and it's seasons, right? And actually, this is probably like a thing that I use a lot in coaching too. So maybe people can use it. But there's a diagram with it, like a triangle. And on 3 points of the triangle, there's like your family and your relationships, your social life. And then there's one other corner of the triangle is like your education or your career and, your learning academy and stuff like that. And then on the other side is your health and fitness and wellness. And that triangle, it's always going to be shifting around. You're going to be sort of moving around that triangle at all different times. You can't be growing all three areas at once. No one can be growing all three. You can't be thriving in all three areas at once. Maybe one of those is taking over, like you've only got 100% of your energy, right? Maybe one of those is using 70%. That means that only 30% of your energy is going across the other two. And it's over time going to shift. And I think for myself, when I've reached burnout, it's because I've had expectations of myself to be performing at 100% in all areas. And I get really overwhelmed that I feel like I'm not managing my health and fitness well when I run a health and fitness business, but it's because I'm putting like 90% of my energy into my business at the time, and then using a little bit to make sure I still had my relationships open. We were in COVID time, and I was my own health and fitness. I was struggling to get to my own sessions and I was trying to overdo it and stressed because I wasn't getting everything. But then over other times where health and fitness is thriving, I definitely noticed that I can't be growing my business in the back end of prep. When my health and fitness and my training is such a high priority, it needs to pull back from business growth. That needs to just sit at maintenance for a sec. Or maybe even I'll stop taking on new clients for a period before that so that I'm a little bit less busy towards the end of my prep. So anyone who does decide to leave in that time, I'll just leave those spaces open rather than trying to refill them for that gap. And if you're constantly trying to thrive in all three areas, that's probably where you're reaching burnout quite quickly. If you've just got to accept that sometimes two of them got to be put on hold while one grows, or two of them can grow a little bit and one of them's got to be put on hold, but they can't all be growing at once.
I love that you mentioned that, because for those who are thinking of competing or are competing, it's very common to want or having that thought in mind that you have to do all the things, like juggle all these balls. And I love that you literally just openly said like, hey, it's not realistic for you to do all of those things, because you're focusing on a competition that you're wanting to win, but you're also trying to serve your clients. So you have to choose either or. Like, yes, we do need to make money, but maybe not emphasizing so much on the business side of things while you're doing the competition, or while you're heading closer to that competition time, which is really cool, because not many people speak about that. Because a lot of people out there, when they're talking about business, they're like, you just have to push, you constantly go, get all the clients, make all the money. But just like, there's a time and place for launching programs, for putting up advertisements, for taking on clients, but there's also a point in life where you should enjoy what you have right now and then do other things like yourself, whether it's competing or moving houses, changing environments, like all of that. It takes a lot of mental capacity. So yeah,
capacity is a good point on that. A good way to sort of look at it. I noticed, for me with competing, it's people need to realize, if anyone out there is actually thinking about competing who hasn't before, like, it is a very selfish sport. It is a very selfish sport. It takes over, everything. My clients are needing to be quite understanding towards that end point of my training, and I do forewarn them, as it gets closer to prep, I am going to be more forgetful, or I take the last week before my show off any contact with them all, and I let them know in advance and make sure they're up to date with everything and stuff. I don't just disappear. But in saying that, when I went through a really poor time with my mental health towards the end of last year in October, and I actually did close my business down for 6 weeks, and that was probably the scariest thing I've ever done, because obviously it's a huge risk that nobody would have come back. And when I launched back on to ease myself back in, because I was in a bad mental health place, I didn't want to jump back up to full capacity. I only took back on about half of my clients. And I'm at the moment now just basically now ready to build that back up. And so I think it's understanding where in your business too is, where is your capacity for when you're thriving, and where is your capacity for when you just need it to just pay the bills. And so that you can use the rest of your capacity, your time, for yourself, your health, whatever else is going along in your world. I had a death in the family in that time too. And so to be able to have less time working and more time with my family. That was really important. And so when you're working for yourself, it's so easy to let it consume everything. And for seasons, it will. For certain periods of time, it will. And it's great. But you also got to know, draw a line in your business on where I can drop it to if needed, to just let it just coast if I've got some other shit go down. It's not always about building a profit. Sometimes it's about letting you live your life as well. And for me, and where my mental health was at, like that was incredibly important, to be able to do that. And yeah, once again, scariest thing I've ever done, just message all my clients one day, like, I'm about to take a 6-week break. I'm going to finish your programs off just now. I'll stop all your subscriptions. I literally wasn't paid $1 for 6 weeks. And then when I reached back out, almost all of them were still there, ready to come back on. Like, it was really nice. But yeah, I think you can't convince yourself that it's more important than your health is probably a major point that I'd push forward to any new coaches, because it's easy to think that everyone's going to hate you if you can't show up one day or whatever, but sometimes you just got to not, if you're not okay.
It comes down to being honest with yourself as well. Not many of us are honest enough, and I love the fact that you've opened up about that regarding you taking the time off and taking care of yourself, because there might be girls listening to you right now going, oh my God, 6 weeks? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? And it's just like, if you reach a point where you're like, enough is enough, you just need that break to just breathe and just do what you need to do. You know, maybe don't take the 6 weeks. Maybe it's a week. Maybe it's 4 weeks. Like, who knows? Like, I know coaches who have taken longer than 6 weeks and then they came back into the industry and they're doing completely fine. It's that scary, that scarcity mentality that we have. Like, you know, once we leave, no one's going to come back. It's going to take forever to build up. It's just like, that's just your fucking ego talking, you know, because you're literally just putting all these assumptions in your head. And you know what? 85% of the assumptions that you have in your brain don't even come true.
Yeah, that's not true. The stories we tell ourselves are bullshit all the time. But what surprised me actually, and was, I guess, the most reassuring thing of that whole thing, was the amount of my clients who, you know, obviously they're a little bit disappointed I'm running away from them for 6 weeks, but who thanked me because I showed that I do the thing that I tell them to do all the time. Like, yes. Put yourself first, put your energy first. Like, that thing can wait, or take a break if you need to. Tell your boss that you need some time. Like, you know, when you're a coach for health and fitness, you're also talking about their whole life and lifestyle with them. And if you're not already trained on behavior change and a lot of work on mindset, like, get into it, because that's more of your job than anything else. But I'm always encouraging people to put themselves first. And I actually had quite a lot of my clients thank me for, like, walking my talk in that area. Or I'm expecting them to be like, oh, Helena, 6 weeks, that's ridiculous. What am I supposed to do? And go find another coach. Instead, they were saying thank you. And like, you know, I burst into tears, like the first thank you I got, and I had like 6 or 7 of them. And that was really empowering, I think, to go, okay, well, I've obviously done a good enough job. They didn't all run away, but also, like, you know, people like to see that you are vulnerable. People like to see that you have hard stuff too, and that you still get the stuff done with your hard stuff, and that gives them hope that they can still get the stuff done with their hard stuff too. So, I think that was, for me, that was very powerful. So if that's helpful for somebody who's needs a break, even if it's just, you know, a few extra days. Sometimes I think I worked like 8 months before I took a proper day off when I first started my business, and I felt bad about taking a day. I was like, okay guys, I'm not going to be available on Wednesday next week, I'm taking the day. And my clients are like, piss off, take a day. Like, we're fine. And I was like, oh, nobody ran away from me, and everybody was just fine. And then, you know, it's obviously I started to take days off after that because it was well too long. But everybody's fine. You're important, but you're not that important.
Yeah. It's so funny how we, like, you know, we're so hard on ourselves thinking that our clients are needing us 24/7. It's just like, they're not babies, they're adults. And for you to be honest with them and vulnerable is another way for them to relate to what's happening with you. Because a lot of people, and you know what, I can talk from experience as well. When I've had mentors in the past or coaches, I would literally put them on a freaking pedestal being like, you are fucking God. Like, oh my God, you get all the shit done. Like, I just idolize you. That's not a healthy way to look at someone, because you're trying to achieve what they're doing. And then when you don't achieve it, you put yourself down and you're hard on yourself going, but they can do it. Why can I do it? Like, I'm not good enough, da, da, da. So when you have these real conversations with clients, being like, hey, I'm having a really tough time right now. I need to take a break today. Let's move our check-in to another day. Be honest. Like, there's no need to fluff around and be like, oh, I can't do today. Just be like, it's perfect example. Last weekend, I moved into my new place. I literally messaged all my girls going, I'm going to be a little bit erratic with replying back to messages, girls, over the weekend. The latest I will get back to you will be a Monday. And literally every one of them was just like, take the day off. Like, we don't need you right now. Do what you need to do. We'll speak to you. And they're like, you've got this, you can do it. And it was just so encouraging to understand and know that they have my back as well as I have theirs. And I think that's a really healthy way of building rapport with clients as well.
Huge. And just another note on that. I know this podcast dragged on a little bit, but when we talk about people that we look up to who achieve the things we achieve and think that they haven't got the shit that we've got, it's like almost like we have a tendency to make excuses for their success. They did that because they don't have this, or they did that because they must have had help in that area, or they didn't have this shit that I have. That also gives you a big limiting barrier. If you assume that they've gotten that because they don't have the same shit as you, you're giving yourself an excuse to not actually try hard enough as well. And I think that's one of the main reasons why on my platform, of course, I'd share health and fitness content. Otherwise I wouldn't get any clients through it. But my stories are really just my everyday life. And when I've been through some really hard stuff, like, I talk to my Instagram like it's my journal half the time. My stories are pretty real and raw. And it actually helps so many people, because they, like, you look this way and you train this way and you still get your training sessions done, or, you messed up all this stuff, but you got back on track. And it lets people see that you can still achieve things. You can still grow your business. You can still be working towards the body of your dreams. You can, if you're choosing to do any of those things while you've got your shit there, even if it's a little bit later or the path looks a bit different. But if people just assume that you've only gotten that because you didn't have shit, it doesn't help them. It doesn't help them. Like, it gives people hope to know that even though you had your shit, you got it done anyway. So when they have their shit, they're not like, well, this means I can't do that. And so, yeah, we're making excuses for other people's success. We're also just making excuses for why we won't do it. And it stops people from trying.
Yeah. And it places a lot of limiting beliefs into what you're actually able to do. Yeah. Far out. You know what? That could be like a whole nother podcast about making up excuses for not owning their shit and getting stuff down, because I could literally just pull out a whole freaking list of stuff that I've spoken to with clients, or even for myself. Like you mentioned, we look up to certain people and you're like, oh my God, they're multimillionaires. It's just like, oh, I'm never going to be that because they live in the US, or they have this platform, or they have that coach. And it's just like, you can do it if you put the work into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, I could branch off again, but I suppose I think this was meant to be a half an hour chat, wasn't it?
I love it. It's so funny. Like, whenever I come on here and I'm like, cool, so we have half an hour, 45 minutes, and I end up ranting, and then I was going to say my clients, my guests end up ranting as well, which I think is the best way of having a conversation, is literally bringing up all this stuff up, because I know it's very relatable to everyone.
I know that my rambles sometimes have the most important things that I have to say. And it's sometimes even in like my Loom check-ins with my clients, like I'll say something, I'm like, whoa, I need to write that down, because that is an Instagram caption that's inspiring. But it's something just flowed off the cuff when speaking about the way that a client had spoken about their subjective view of their progress. And I hold up and I'll go on a rant. And I'm like, all right, can I transcribe that, please? Because that was gold. If I tried to put something like that together, it wouldn't come out that way. And yeah, I think some of the times the best stuff that comes out of us is when we have just a spark thought because something's triggered us. So the overthinking, it ruins all my creativity.
Yeah. Oh my God. Overthinking kills. Absolutely kills. This is why I have naps, because after a nap, I'll wake up so refreshed and like all these ideas will start sparking in my head. I'm like, this is great. Let's have more naps.
That's good. Be like this. Mine's in the shower, and I'm like, I need a whiteboard in here because
Oh
I'm
my
just.
God, yes. I
It's
love
just-
that. Pull that whiteboard that you have behind you and just place it in the shower. When you have a good idea, just like dot it down.
Yeah, I was like, I need a marker that'll write on the glass while it's wet, and I don't think anything like that exists yet. But if it does, that'd be great. Someone please
That's
patent
a
that.
great idea. I think you should write that down.
Yeah,
Come up
trademark
with
it.
it and you
Yeah.
can write on your shower screen.
Yeah, it's where so many people have great ideas. And, I've had times where I've, stepped out of the shower, like, you're dripping all over the floor, and I could grab my phone, write in notes quickly because, like, a caption came to mind or something that I want to put together a presentation for my clients comes to mind. I'm like, if I try and think about that when I get out of here, I'm going to forget. So I'm standing there, like, shower running, half out of the shower, dripping water all over the floor, while typing it into my notes on my phone. I just have to remember then later on to actually open the notes on my phone to find
And do it. Yeah. I love that because I end up opening my phone with all these ideas. I'm like, when did I think of this? Like, this is crazy. And then like sparks more ideas to do.
Yeah, you're like, that was genius. I don't remember thinking of that, but good work.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This conversation has been so freaking insightful. And I know our listeners are going to be getting a lot of use out of what we've spoken about, especially around like routine and being a coach and setting up, those times for us to just wind down. But before we head off, where can our followers find you?
Cool. So yeah, Instagram is my best platform. So Helena_Sly is where you find me on Instagram, and my website link is from there too. I do coach coaches as well. I have a couple of coaches that I'm mentor up through the ranks too. So if anybody's interested in something like that, I'm happy to chat to people too. It doesn't necessarily need to be that you come on as a client. I'm happy to book consults with people who are new coaches too, and help them sort of discuss some ideas on their business too, which is always nice, and I think it's really rewarding as you develop as a coach yourself to be able to help others. But yeah, that's mostly where you find me. Is just Instagram is my main jam.
Awesome. I love that. Well, girls, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you recommend it, share it, leave us a review, screenshot it and tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag myself, tag Helena, and then till next time, just take ownership of the choices that you're making and don't let yourself sit in that shit for too long.
Get out of the shit, take the out of your day, and you're flying. Life feels good.
Yeah, baby. Till next time. Bye.